Yeah, Larry, you just mentioned something about Alan Dershowitz being called a racist by Maxine Waters. She was dead for years. All of a sudden, didn't Dershowitz defend a black guy, O.J. Simpson? How come you didn't mention that? Alan Dershowitz. Maxine Waters was a fool, and she's the worst racist who ever lived, and a Jew hater also. And Maxine Waters can go to hell. She's a crook. She was investigated. She and her husband, Sidney, was bringing in all kinds of drugs when he was chosen by Bill Clinton to some office in the Caribbean. Bye.
Holy frioles and guacamole.
Larry, I loved your Maxine Waters impersonation, and when she becomes our next president and has the FCC snuff out conservative radio, well, at least you'll have the law to fall back on. But then you can do stand-up comedy. Maybe you can do the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Have a great evening, and thanks for everything you do for America. Bye.
Thank you. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I don't think I told you my other Maxine Waters story, did I? I told you the one about my meeting her with Congressman David Dreyer in the Capitol building, and she was less than gracious and warm and effusive when she met me. I was also invited to attend a celebration for the election of a new mayor in Los Angeles. The mayor was named James Hahn. Ironically, James Hahn and I went to the same middle school. I think he was the only white kid who went to that school because his dad was a county supervisor, and his dad felt it was important for his kid to go to school in that district and send his kid to school in that district. In any case, he became mayor. He is left-wing. Of course, I didn't support him. And I get this invitation inviting me to the home of a gentleman who was holding a celebration for James Hahn's election. And I was surprised I got the invitation because I didn't give me any money. Not only that, I opposed him. But I agreed to go because I wanted to meet some of these Democrats and talk with them. And maybe I could buttonhole a few of them and get some of them to rethink some of their assumptions. That's what I thought maybe I would be able to do. So I accepted. Next day, I get a phone call from the man whose home this affair was to be held. And I had met him once before, friendly guy, and knew him, and so he wasn't an enemy or anything. And he calls and he says, excuse me, we sent you an invitation to come to James Hahn's celebration of his winning the mayoral race. And I said, yeah. And you accept? I said, yes. He said, we're going to have to, I said, take back the invitation? He said, yeah, because I said, look, don't worry about it. Frankly, I was surprised that you had sent it to me. It was probably sent by a mistake. Doesn't matter. It's your house. You can invite whoever you want, and don't worry about it. He was so relieved. Phone rings a few minutes later. It's a friend of mine. And she is a person who's also been invited to this affair. And she said, I heard about what happened to you. She said, why don't you come as my guest? That way you'll be able to come anyway. And I said, it's a private party. Again, I didn't give this guy any money. I'm not interested in being some sort of disrupting factor. Don't worry about it. She said, I really think what happened to you is chicken bleep. I said, frankly, it doesn't matter to me. These are left-wing people. They believe somebody like me is toxic. I get it. Don't worry about it. So she went, and she told me that there were people stationed at the door to make sure that Larry Elder did not show up uninvited. Now, turns out the person who was behind my being disinvited, I found out, was Maxine Waters. She was very upset that Larry Elder was being invited to this soiree and insisted to know why and demanded that I be disinvited and put pressure on the guy whose home it was held to do that. That's what I found out. So those are my Maxine Waters stories. I don't think we'll be getting any Christmas card from her anytime soon. I was asked whether or not I'd ever met Maxine Waters. And I have. I was in the Capitol having lunch with Congressman David Dreyer years ago, and in walks Maxine Waters, the Capitol Hill cafeteria. And I said, can I meet Maxine Waters? Can you walk over with me and introduce? She said, sure. So we walk over. She was talking with someone else. She noticed me. She let us cool our heels for a few seconds. And then she turned, and I said, hi, Congresswoman Waters. I'm Larry Elder. It's nice to finally meet you. And she said, nice to finally meet you, too. And didn't say another word, just stared at me. Made the moment very awkward. And Congressman Dreyer is looking at all of this like it's a tennis match. And finally, after a few seconds of awkward silence, we go back to our table. He said, "What was that all about? I've never seen her act like that before." I said, "Congressman, here's the deal. She acts one way to you and another way to people that she perceives to be disgusting. And there's nothing more disgusting to a left-wing hysteric like Maxine Waters than a black conservative who does not believe that racism is a major problem in America, does not believe the police are out persecuting black people, believe that the destruction of the nuclear family is a far bigger problem than racism. I am her worst nightmare." He says, "I am shocked." I said, "Congressman, why be shocked? Aren't you friendly with Charlie Rangel?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Have you heard some of the disgusting things Charlie Rangel says about you guys? That you don't say N-word or S-word anymore. You just say, let's cut taxes. I mean, aren't you aware of the things he says?" And he goes, "Well, we don't take it seriously." I said, "Exactly. She has one attitude towards you and one that's real serious towards somebody like me." He was stunned. My former colleague at another radio station was Gloria Allred, the feminist. She had a radio show, and she and I had the radio show at the same time. And Gloria and I are friends. And I said, "Gloria, I can't get Maxine Waters to come on my show. I know she won't come on. But can you at least, next time you have her on your show, ask her why she won't come on mine?" She said, "Yeah, I'll do that." And she did. And unfortunately, I no longer have the tape. But Gloria said, "Oh, one more thing before you go. My colleague here, Larry Elder, says he's been trying to get you and you won't come on his show." And I told him that I would ask you why it is you won't come on his show. "Why won't you come on his show?" And she said, "Gloria, I don't go on those shows with those entertainers. Larry Elder, he's an entertainer. I don't know that much about him. I know he's always talking about me, but I don't go on shows with entertainers. Now, Gloria, I go on your show because you're a serious journalist." I know. You're a serious journalist. And that's why I go on your show, but I won't go on Larry Elder's show because he's just an entertainer. And so those are my interactions with Congresswoman Maxine Waters. And I wrote her a letter in 2001, and I urged her to get together with me. Let's have a serious conversation about the welfare state, about gun control, about your opposition to vouchers, about your assertion that racism remains a major problem in America. Let's just have a discussion about this. She didn't even respond to this very lengthy and I thought very well-written letter. To this day, she hasn't responded to it. So that's my experience with Congresswoman Waters. Yeah, at least she thinks the show's entertaining, so I'll give her that.
Answer the question.
No, I've answered.
Oh, would you? Let's say
it has nothing to do with
it does really great.
Power.
What if it does really great? How do you know? You don't know that.
Because massive socialism has never worked. I mean, Argentina tried, Japan tried it. They have higher IQs than we do. You can't borrow $1 trillion. We don't have $1 trillion. You know what that means, Joy? That means you either are in hock to China, and there is definitely massive inflation because you start printing money. That means any dollar you have today will be worth 50 cents
But
in a few
who are
years.
we indebted to for the Iraq War, for example, where we spent $1 trillion also?
Look,
and Bush and his people brought the deficit up incredibly. So who are we in debt to for that?
Yeah, and the deficit's very bad, and Republicans have been the ones talking about it for years. I think it was Bob Dole who said, let them run on the deficit. We've been running on it for 30 years. Americans don't care. Each president, because of the spending of the government, each president has a bigger deficit than the last one. You know what the entire deficit...
Take a breath.
The entire deficit under George Bush that you're so worried about is $400 billion. This stimulus bill is nearly $1 trillion.
Well, that's not true. First of all, everybody knows, and I'm not a political person exactly, but everybody knows at this point that George Bush got a great surplus when he came into office, and he squandered it. Everyone knows that.
It was a surplus on paper.
Oh, I see. Okay. Now, are you frightened or gleeful that Rush Limbaugh seems to be the head of your party these days?
Oh, I think it's fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, I'd rather have somebody, I mean, I hope, actually, we do have a lot, not that I'd rather have some, but I would like more Republicans running for office who can talk like Rush Limbaugh
You consider Rush Limbaugh a Republican? I consider him an extreme right-winger. I don't consider him a Republican.
An extreme right-winger with 20 million listeners.
Well, you know, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Well,
that he has 20 million listeners?
That
doesn't mean that 20 million people are agreeing with him, you know. It means that they're listening.
I think
a lot of people are very
something.
masochistic, and they'll listen to Rush Limbaugh.
You're saying that his 20 million listeners hate him and disagree with him?
No, not all, but not everybody agrees with him.
If you're describing someone as extreme, I think it can't be someone who is massively popular with the American people. I mean, that's dead down the center.
Okay. All right, let me ask you something else. Now,
Do you listen to Rush, by the way?
I used to work with him. I was on
but
the
you
same
don't listen
station.
to him.
No.
Well, okay. How can you describe him as extreme? We could interview one of the 20 million people who listen to him every day.
But I'm not that into somebody who filibusters like that. I like
you
a
don't
conversation.
listen to him. How do you know he filibusters?
Because I worked with him for 3 years, and I know what he does.
When did you work with him?
In the early 90s, I had a radio show on WABC Radio.
Okay, so from 20 years ago, you have decided you know that he is an extremist.
I see him all the time.
When he has 20 million listeners.
I know his routine. I know his
More
rap.
than anyone on TV. More than Oprah. Do you think everybody watching Oprah hates her? They're just watching it out of Schadenfreude? Would you ask Oprah?
Okay, you know,
do people hate you?
Do people hate you? I'd like to ask you that.
No.
Do you think that people hate you?
No. Not when I have 7 New York Times bestsellers. No, I'm very popular.
But you can't have everybody love you. Not everybody loves you, Ann. People think
you asked me if people hated me.
I know, but you say
suddenly
you're saying
no, they
you're
don't hate
saying
me.
though
Saying
because
everybody loves me.
But you say because you sell books that makes you think that people love you.
No, I said that indicates to me that they do not hate me, which was the question, Joy.
Okay. Ann was on The View recently. We had a good time. Take a look at this.
We are not attacking you. You wrote something provocative.
Read aloud like you're reading Mein Kampf, and I just did.
Can I just read a section aloud?
Yes, and read it like you're reading Mein Kampf again.
I don't think I did that.
I think you did. You spat out the words when I wasn't sitting here.
Let me do this. Throughout John, in this case, I'd like to discuss something current.
Was that? Yes, that was lovely. You could do the audiobook. Well, we don't know that much about her. I mean,
he's attacking you. I just don't appreciate the way you're talking to her. I mean, nobody is attacking you. You didn't have to talk to her.
I wasn't
like she.
here.
And you're describing the thing. I just think, Ann.
You're not that popular on the show, I don't think. I mean, Sherry had to defend Barbara against you. She felt the need.
Yes.
Because you said that Barbara looked like she was reading Mein Kampf. Sounded like she was reading Mein Kampf when she was reading your book.
Yes, what a brutal attack.
But, do you know, Barbara happens to be Jewish. Is that a little...
What does that have
I don't know, is that a little insensitive
about,
why did you pick Mein Kampf?
Okay, if you can't mention Hitler or Mein Kampf when anyone Jewish is interviewing you, then how about not having Jewish people interview? What, do we have a list of what can be mentioned?
Just asking, that's all. I mean, you know what, we can talk about...
I think we need a NASDAQ ticker for which words can be used at which times, by which people, when talking to whom, and it would be constantly changing and updated all the time. How about we just talk?
Don't you think there's room for sensitivity? Don't you think there's room for sensitivity, you know, like that cartoon that was in the Post?
No, I think that is a perfect example of what I say in my book. People playing the victim. No, people playing the victim when they're the victimizers. You didn't play the way Barbara Walters read my book the first time, and she was spitting out the words like she was reading from Mein Kampf.
You don't think you're a little paranoid here? I mean, she was just
Well, why don't you play it? Play it for the viewers. Let them decide.
Well, they saw it already.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I liked that part.
All right, we got to take another break. What's the biggest trouble Ann's gotten herself into? We'll ask her when we come back. Okay, let's take a call from Columbus, Ohio. Columbus, you're on the line. Hello.
Hi, Joy.
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to ask Ann, it seems like her whole focus is on what, is wrong with President Obama's approach to, finding solutions for our current situation. And I was wondering if she's truly honest with herself, what responsibility she feels like, Republicans and the conservatives have in this whole mess that we're in.
Right. They have the responsibility to the Constitution and the country, which they are fulfilling magnificently, I might add. What we have now, as I said, is this massive socialist bill that will transfer money not to individuals, not to create jobs, to state, local, and the federal government, that will, by the way, repeal the welfare reform provisions from the 1996 welfare reform bill that was so successful. Bill Clinton ended up claiming credit for it. It has provisions to, redo at the cost of billions of dollars the docks that are near Nancy Pelosi's husband's rental properties. Chuck Schumer, Senator Chuck Schumer just said, well, okay, she wants to know if you want to defend freedom, you got to vote against this bill.
But it's too long an answer. We have only a little bit of time left, and I have more things to ask you. Like, have you ever gotten into real trouble? For instance, it's interesting that you called Scott McClellan retarded in your book. You said that the 9/11 widows were enjoying their husbands' deaths. Now, those are two outrageous statements. First of all, retarded people could get very offended by that.
That is
Comparing
true.
them to Scott McClellan.
That is true.
I know you were going
I apologize.
there. No,
yes.
seriously, people do not like that when you use the word retarded in that flipped manner. And that the 9/11 widows were enjoying their husband's death. Where did you come up with that?
I think it is outrageous for the media to pick on the retarded press secretary as if and treat him like he's suddenly Zarathustra.
But if he was retarded, why did Bush hire him?
I promise you, I called him that even when he was working for Bush, because luckily for me, I don't have a job, and I could stay home and watch press conferences. You'd only see David Gregory getting into it with Scott McClellan. I saw the whole press conference. McClellan could turn, you know, the fact that Bush had eggs for breakfast into an Ehrlichman-Haldeman conspiracy. So he was.
That's pretty clever. That doesn't sound retarded to me.
No, he was terrible for the job. He was another Bush loyalist. It was one of Bush's, it's his Achilles heel that he kept going to Bush loyalist people he knew. They weren't very loyal to him in the case of Scott McClellan. And, oh, man, we've been through the Jersey Girls a million times.
What's their problem? What's your problem with them? I never heard this
Well, they're
before.
gone now, thanks to that book, so we can move on.
But why do you say that people who lost their husbands in a horrible, horrible fire and a terrible tragedy like that?
I didn't say they were enjoying the deaths. I said when they were going around cutting anti-war commercials, cutting commercials for Kerry, using their victimhood to prevent anyone from responding to them. They were loving that, being photographed for Vanity Fair. I said it. We had an argument about it. I won it. They're gone. So we can move on to 3 books later.
Okay,
come on. Didn't I insult anybody in this book? I think they're meant.
Well, you insult single mothers quite a bit, I think.
Excellent. I wanted to get to that topic.
You do insult single mothers.
I don't think I do.
And now, you say practically that single mothers were responsible for everything wrong in the world. Now, I was a single mother. Am I responsible for the financial turndown? Am I responsible for the housing market crash?
No, I think I make it very clear in that chapter.
Is Bernie Madoff a single mother?
Moreover, you weren't an unwed mother, were you?
No, I was a married woman, and I was divorced, and then I was a single mother.
I specifically distinguish widows and divorced mothers from single mothers. We already have words for widows and divorced mothers. They're called widows and divorced mothers.
Why
Liberals try to include that in the category of single mothers in order to class up the category, like referring to the GI Bill as a form of welfare. And the statistics by now, I mean, we've had 30 years of statistics. The evidence is in. When 80% of the inmates in our prisons were raised by single mothers, mostly unwed mothers. The children of widows don't turn out particularly badly.
But there are tons of people out there who were raised by single mothers who are doing quite well.
Sure, this is looking at it from the other end. And when you
have... why not look at it from that end?
Well, because that's 80% of the prison population. How about 80% fewer crimes? How about the fact that, according to a liberal Policy Institute, if you remove the factor of single motherhood, keep everything else the same, residence, socioeconomic status, income, the difference in black and white crimes disappears.
Why don't you blame the men who knock these women up?
Because they're not celebrated.
And also, what do you think about Bristol Palin? She's a single mother.
I think she should give the child up for adoption or marry the father. I mean, I say in that, I think the people who should be revered aren't the baby mamas. They are the people who have shotgun marriages. Apparently, not a lot of those shotgun marriages worked out because they used to have them a lot and the divorce rate was lower.
So you would rather that Bristol Myers, I was going to say, what's her name? Bristol Palin, marry the guy, even though
maybe... Or give the child up for adoption. I think I'm very clear about that.
Do you know what the ramifications of giving a child up for adoption?
Yes, I do. I write about it in the book.
It's not that easy to think.
Well, for the child, it's a lot better, and that's what I'm talking about. The real victims here are the children who are being bought. The worst lottery ticket you could buy your child being raised by a single mother. The best lottery ticket you could buy your child is to give the child up for adoption.
So
just don't venerate these women and
hold
them up as
anybody.
They are. Then you haven't watched anything out of Hollywood.
A lot of you are talking about her on Larry's blog, and here's David Thiel to tell us about it. David?
Listen, Joy, we certainly have been talking about Anne's appearance throughout the day. We've been monitoring the comments during your conversation with her. Some of the things we're hearing: bomb thrower, very disappointed, venomous, and this: I like Ann Coulter. While you go to the blog, cnn.com/Larry King, check out the exclusive extra that we have on the blog from an upcoming guest, somebody you're going to be talking to here very shortly. That's Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar. They have 18 kids. 18 children. You're going to be talking about the Octomom here very shortly. And they have given us a blog extra about how to save money when you are raising kids these days. Again, that is at cnn.com/Larry King. Look for that blog link. jump into the conversation. We look forward to hearing from you. Joy.
Thanks, David. They have a lot of tips, the Duggars. Thank you, Ann, for coming on.
Thank you.
You were fine. You were great. I loved talking to you, really. When we come back, an exclusive, a new plan to pay for the octuplets and their siblings. But is it going to cost you anything? Find out when we come back.